anxious to step through the gate again, Major?
Yes, I am.
We all are.
Would you like us to bring back anything special?
No thanks.
Groceries, new outfit, flatware?
No, just yourselves in one piece, please. Dial it up. Be safe.
Welcome to the Jumping Puddles podcast. Be sure to listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and or YouTube. And follow us at Jumping Puddles Podcast on Tumblr and Instagram, and Jumping Pud Pod on Twitter. And if you want to support our podcast, please check out our coffee. I'm Sam, and with me are my fellow co-hosts, Tor and Ash.
Hey!
Elizabeth and the team visit an advanced civilization who they believe to be ancients, only to slowly realize this race is a new face belonging to an old nemesis.
Ooh. Dun dun dun!
We threw in a new ooh in there.
It just sounded so dramatic. I had to say ooh.
I like this episode.
Yeah.
Sam was like,
That's a
why?
good start. No, that's a good start.
Yeah, I started it, like, I started watching it, I was like, I'm scared. Because I know where this is gonna lead, like, eventually. Like, I know that this is gonna set up, like, the Elizabeth being infected with nanites, and not just the next episode, but also, like, her whole story arc, basically, for the rest of the season, and the rest of her being on the show. So I'm like, I don't want this. But, yeah, I think, I don't know, it's not my favorite episode, but I think it's good.
Yeah, I second that. I feel like the team dynamics carry us through a lot of the exposition of this episode, for sure.
Yeah. We said it right before we started recording, but it's like, you can never have a good Stargate episode of just, like, both characters and story. Like, you do, but it's, like, super rare, I feel like. Especially with Atlantis. I fear sometimes the story will be so good and the characters are like, eh. Although it doesn't really happen that often. Most of the time it's just the characters are just, like, so excellent and, like, the actors are carrying the show. And the plot's like, eh. That's how I feel about this episode. The plot, lots of things to despise, lots of things to criticize. But the characters, so fun. I love seeing, like, the team go on just, like, a regular adventure where they have, like, no idea what to expect. And then plus the added bonus of getting Elizabeth. When was the last time Elizabeth left her office?
That's a good question.
I was thinking about that. And I was thinking, Epiphany? Like, she was sent back to Earth, but, like, that she went off an off-world mission, like, in the Pegasus? Maybe Epiphany?
Oh, wow. So all the way back in season 2, then. Late season 2, but still, it's been a while. Really nice to see her with the rest of the cast off-world, because we get to see dynamics that we don't normally get to see on the show.
And there was one tiny detail that I really loved about her, like, Tori's performance. It was just when they stepped through the gate, like, when they came out of the gate, she looked so uncomfortable and, like, kind of scared. Or, like, kind of, I don't know, not scared, but, like, something like if the gate travel had done something for her, I was like, yeah, she's not used to gate travel. And, like, we kind of lose, like, the whole, how you feel after gate travel, like, really, really early on in SG-1 already. But, like, I think it feels really weird, and you have to get used to it. And because she doesn't do that a lot, it's kind of, like, everyone else is just so chill. They just walk straight through, don't feel a thing. And for her, it's just, like, a little shiver. And I really love that detail about her. Because, yeah, it shows that she's always stuck on Atlantis and in her office, and now she gets to go outside. It doesn't really work out well for her.
No.
But, yeah, I like that.
It's definitely a nice character contrast.
Can I just say, though, I think it's kind of just hilarious that they send, like, the main team with Elizabeth, like just through the gate, because these aliens are like, "Oh, come through. We like, we promise you peace." And they're like, "Yeah, okay, let's send the leader of the whole expedition. Let's send the leader of the military, and let's send like our head scientist." You can say this about like every episode of Atlantis. It's just kind of just a little funny because they have like such high positions in Atlantis, and they're so like crucial to like how Atlantis runs every day. That it's just a little silly whenever they go out on like a big adventure, just like we're going to the gate, guys. Like, who knows if we'll be back? So it just kind of cracked me up though, especially in this episode when the aliens, or the Assurans were like, "You promise if you come through, we'll be peaceful. Or, like, if you want friendship, come on through." And the gang was just like, "Good enough for us. We'll trust their word. Let's go." And then it immediately backfired on them. Like 20 minutes later, they're like, "We made a mistake."
What was so funny to me in that respect was that when, in the end, jumping way ahead, but when they like return to Atlantis for real and the ship explodes like above, Atlantis basically explodes, but like the Assurance Atlantis, and there's this one guard, and he just looks up in the sky and is like, "Huh, I wonder what that is." And it was so funny to me, but I just imagined like the team going through like the horrors on like with like the replicators and stuff, and everyone on Atlantis is just straight up chilling.
True.
It was like a slow day in Atlantis. Like they were serving like fucking meatloaf or some shit. So like it was like complaining about it. Like Lauren was trying to like have a chess match with Parrish, and Parrish was like, "No, I'm not in the mood today. Like today's like a drink of tea by the window type of day." And then the Atlantis team is out there like getting mind probed and tortured. And, like...
Oh, speaking of which, that was one of the things that I liked about this episode. Was that I always like when the evil people want Rodney for his brain, and the evil people wanted Rodney for his brain this episode. Definitely the replicators wanted to keep their hands on the coding master. Didn't work out for them, thankfully, but...
Not to like start bringing up like all these like really like questions that we know for sure we have no answers to. But I'm also kind of surprised they didn't want to keep John, because do they have the ancient gene?
True.
Can they like work ancient things? I mean, because they sort of replicated, right? They made their own version of like ancient stuff, so it's kind of like that would have been fun too if they were also like couldn't actually work the ancients like real like jumpers in the city because they were replicated. They were like they've been locked out of the system because they were like erased from the Atlantis like database or whatever. So
yeah, that's interesting.
That is interesting.
And I wonder, like, because they built that ship in the image of Atlantis. So I wonder if there's any way that the stuff that they made is like inferior to the ancient stuff or better than the ancient stuff. And then I also wonder, the idea of ascension as well for the replicators is quite interesting. Like, I wonder if it would be possible for replicators to ascend, because we know that humans can ascend. There are 2 such examples that I remember. So what's to say that a replicator cannot? And I know these ones had a very special thing that was kind of preventing them from ascending, which is that like kill command that the ancients programmed into them. But regularly, because they're sort of already not emotionless, but sort of, I wonder if they could.
I have a question. Are these like the first replicators that are the ancients made the replicators, right?
yeah.
And all the replicators that we've seen on SG1 were also like evolved or like came from the ancients. No?
No. See, this is what the problem with this episode is that there's just too many questions it brings into, because in SG1, remember, okay, I could be remembering this wrong, so like disclaimer, if I'm wrong, ignore everything I'm about to say. the episode with Daniel and that girl, they find that girl, and she's the one who made the replicator. She's like, I was bored, or whatever.
But
And
wasn't
then she made like the
ancient?
little mechanical ones. But then
Oh.
but they left her there. No, because she died. She didn't ascend. She died.
Yeah, she died.
I don't think she was ancient. I think it was like a different culture entirely.
I'm gonna look this up.
So Reese herself was a replicator. So I'm looking at Stargate Wiki right now.
Yeah, so I think they're two separate sets of replicators. The ones in the Milky Way don't have any relation to the ancient ones. The ancients just happen to have this idea of creating an army of like unkillable killing machines, and that's where like their idea for the replicators came from. But the Milky Way replicators are different.
Oh,
Stupid.
that is stupid. Hold on, wait. So they had. Okay, so we have SG-1, and they like bring at some point they bring up this new evil guys, and it's the replicators, and they evolve from blocks to humans.
Yeah.
And then we have Atlantis, and they're bringing like a new evil force, and it's replicators, but they're not the same. They're the same, like, built from the same stuff, but they're not. There's no connection. Okay, Sam. Yeah, I give you that. That is stupid.
Yeah, like the source in the Milky
I
Way
just
galaxy
kinda-
was Reese, like that girl, right? And then,
But who made Reese?
that is the question.
Because
See,
if
but I thought Sorry, no, I thought it was that she wasn't a replicator. She made the replicators. Like, she had the ability to do that.
Yeah.
Right?
So
So
she was a replicator. No, wait.
Is there lore on this? I'm sorry. I keep looking stuff up.
See, that's terrible. If we
Yeah.
have to go through, like, a wiki page and, like, try to find, like, a fucking link, and whether or not they're connected or not, like, that's not good. You're not supposed to do that.
Yeah, she was an android. You're right. She was an android. Created by an unknown person. Like, we don't know how she was made, but she was responsible for the replicators.
I'm gonna choose to believe that she was built by the ancients.
Yeah, I mean, that would make...
Like, that her dad was an ancient. Like, we know that he existed, and I think she talks about him, but we don't know who it was, so...
True.
I think it would, like, fit into, like, the ammo of the ancient. They just, like, create stuff and then just ditch it.
Yeah.
Or, like, leave it. Yeah.
Yep. I think it's really funny that Rodney had to explain, like, in episode that the replicators from SG-1 were not the same as the ones from Atlantis, like, as, like, an in-universe explanation, but also as, like, for the viewer. And then John being still confused about it was really great. And also just, it's such a typically ancient thing. An asshole behavior, so I'm not surprised that the ancients made this whole race, just like they probably made the Wraith themselves, and then were like, oops, we made you too lusty for blood, so we have to kill you all, which only made them matter, and then it becomes Atlantis' problem.
Instead of just deleting or, like, changing their command codes and, like, allowing them to, like, feel something different than violence or, like, rage. That was kind of crazy, that they did that. But also, I feel like I get a lot of hate for this. But I was starting the episode, and, like, of course, in the beginning, they were all, like, Elizabeth was, again, really excited about, like, potential ancients and stuff. And we talked about that, and we give her and, like, the ancients a lot of shit, and I was like, how much do we know about the ancients? Like, it's so much possible that I've just forgotten everything about them. that was ever said because I have a terrible memory. But I was like, we always hate on the ancients. I feel like I've been drawn into this like ancient hater camp, but I've never really reflected on it. And then I went on in the episode and was like, okay, they were really shitty. But I was like, before that, I don't know. Am I missing some like crucial, or like am I forgetting some like crucial things that they did at this up until this point that makes everyone
they just
hate them?
abandoned the Pegasus Galaxy to the Wraith. They were like, bye. We created them, and then we just like left them.
Yeah, that was the main.
And then they do nothing with the Ori. Like, they literally don't do anything to help against the Ori. Like, Daniel has to like beg and plead, and then finally they give him like one little thing.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Did we ever like definitely say that they created the Wraith? Because I'm still not sure about that.
It's heavily implied, I'm pretty sure, but I don't think they ever will confirm it 100% that they did it. But they definitely did it.
And I also think we talk a lot about sort of how the ancients, right back when we watched the Brotherhood, season 1, how the ancients sort of like helped like cultivate this sort of like god-like image. And so the fact that like the Pegasus natives were like so like devoted and like worshiping them, and the fact that they're still like believing and like praying to them and like hoping they'll come back and free them from the Wraith and like save the day. And that was like the whole problem of the episode, where the ZPM gets stolen because they're like, oh, you're not really ancients, and it's like, okay, but the ancients sucked. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think I'm with John in the sense that the ancients are assholes in general, like just their default personality setting, particularly where it comes to like ascension. I think ascension is an interesting thing, especially how it's discussed in this episode. This idea that you're trying to enter this like enlightened state and be your best self, but that doesn't require you to help other people who you like fucked up their lives, and you just can ascend, and like as long as you let go of those feelings, it's okay. I don't know, it doesn't make sense to me so much.
That's true. It's kind of hilarious. One more thing I was thinking of earlier when I was watching the episode, and then I go back to what you were just saying. Because I was thinking about the ancients and why Elizabeth is so fascinated by them. I was like, I kind of get it, because, like, yes, okay, they fucked up, like, majorly in, like, 2 galaxies, and they are fucking arrogant and, all that, and assholes, yeah. And Elizabeth even, like, she even says it. She doesn't say that they are assholes, but she, like, agrees that they are arrogant people. Yeah. But I was thinking, like, from a, historical and cultural and like history of science perspective, they are pretty fascinating because of like everything that they built and everything. Yes, they created a bunch of bullshit like the Wraith Ant, but I get why it's fascinating to people.
It's hard because I don't think there's like a right or wrong answer, but I personally feel like I'm in Shepard's camp, where the idea that like you could be doing more good in the material world instead of like reaching this enlightened state where you can't do anything because of your own rules that you made up. Like you cannot interfere with all the power that you hold. Yeah. So yeah.
It's not really enlightened. Like it doesn't feel like they're smarter when they're ascended.
No.
They're basically just the Ori with like 2 different shades, basically.
Yeah.
Since we're just on this like huge like ancient replicator topic, I just want to say, going back to like sort of our first, how we sort of segued into this, I just personally like will always despise the fact that they made them replicators. I kind of feel like there was no need. I think creating like a new like species or whatever race of like androids or something like else, like some sort of something else. You could still have the same concept, but calling them replicators just drives me off the fucking wall because, like we just talked about, they have no connection to the Milky Way replicators. So, like, what is the point? And I think it starts this trend. I mean, we've sort of been like noticing it like since the beginning, where it's like they'll just copy an episode of SG1 and like just pass it off and be like, oh, okay, it's fine. And I kind of get it. I mean, it's hard to like not like sometimes like be original, especially with like these long running sci-fi shows, right? So it's like Star Trek and like all this stuff. You're bound to like sort of copy or like get inspired by an episode. Like that's fine. But I think this is such like it marks such like a downward spiral, I think, for me, because it's just like there's no like the creativity is like not gone, but it's just like absent. I just think it's so ridiculous to just call them replicators. We don't even really see them like replicate. They just do like mind probey stuff. Like, why didn't you just like make them just like androids and have them like mind probe in like a different way? And I think because at the core, the story is so interesting. Like having, yeah, the ancients creating these machines and then trying to get rid of them once they realize their mistake, and they didn't get rid of all of them. And then now you have this whole race that also despises humans. So you have not only the wraith to fear, but these people to fear. And now Atlantis is like stuck in between these two races. That so cool, so fun. Again, it sort of plays on what we've talked about before with like it just being sort of like the parents, and then like having like the wraith and like the replicators or whatever, like as sort of like these like the upset like step siblings, and having like the humans as like the favorite children, even though they're not even really the favorites. They're just the ones that the agents haven't like completely screwed over. Kind of. But like I don't know. So again, the core of the idea is so cool, and like just feel like there's so much they could have done. And then the second you say the word replicators, it's just like everything just like falls apart. I think like all the tension, all the drama, all the potential story, all the intrigue, honestly for me just kind of like immediately like washed away, because the replicators were decent enough villains in SG1. They had their great moments, they had their low moments, but like we saw them for what was it, like almost 6 seasons. They were introduced in season 4. They were still in season 10. They're even in Arc of the Truth, which is the first SG1 movie. So like we're tired. We've rinsed and repeated that race. And so just to not bother to create a new one and just to sort of just be like, oh, they're just like different but the same, drives me up the fucking walls. Cuckoo bananas. So despite like, yeah, all the intrigue and like all the potential storyline like the potential the storyline has, it's just like doesn't do it for me at all. It's just really unfortunate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. Especially because it's not the first time or the last time that they're doing this. I just remember that there are also Asgard in Atlantis at some point.
Oh.
But like personally, I wasn't really bothered by this. I think, especially because I didn't really even question like their existence or like how they came to be in connection with SG1. I just kind of assumed that they were the same people, like the same. But I can see how that can kind of take you out of like the story.
Yeah, it only really becomes a problem for me if they were relying on like the replicators' notoriety and story in SG1 to lend Stargate Atlantis like gravity. So like replicators were scary in SG1, so they are scary here too, instead of just like showing us why they're scary. And like they did show us why they're scary, so you don't need to use the same name. So yeah,
I also think obviously like because this isn't like a first time watch for us, like I don't really remember how their storyline ends though, but I know it's not like a swag in any way. So I think that's another thing. Like if they had like managed to like successfully like, pull this off, they might be like, okay, like whatever, yeah, they like reused some villains, like it's fine, whatever. But because I know that like how the fuck does this even end? Like, what even happened? Oh, Elizabeth in season 5 and all that, and she like freezes them again, basically, right? And they finally manage to turn them all off. I think. Yeah. See, so that's
But
like
it wasn't done
not.
well.
Yeah. Yeah.
I also sympathize with like some of the replicators here. Especially because they were like different factions. There was Oberov and then Niam. Um and Niam was like, I don't know, the good guy. Oh yeah, I was happy that the team didn't betray him because that's what SG1 did, right? Now that I'm thinking about it, he's kind of like fifth in
Yeah.
SG1.
They
Like the
copied the
good
exact
guy, the one who's
episode.
like, oh no.
Oh no! Oh
Really?
no!
Do you remember which episode it was in SG1?
Unnatural selection.
Yeah, I can see all the parallels now, especially between Fifth and Sam and Niam and Elizabeth. I'm kind of glad that they didn't push like anything romantic too much in this
Yeah.
episode, because I think it would have, I don't know, it wouldn't really have fit, and it would have like even made it more similar to the SG1 episode. But still, Niam had a gigantic crush on Elizabeth, which just like it just strengthens my argument that everyone has a crush on Elizabeth.
This is true. It's just
Very
facts.
cute, honestly. Way cuter than Fifth and Sam.
Yeah, that was weird.
I actually like
It was
Fifth.
just- yeah. Oh,
But I liked Fifth in the first episode when they betrayed him, and then after that made him an incel, and I was like, wait, I take it back.
Exactly. Exactly. That's exactly what happened.
oh, that's true.
I did enjoy the hand-holding scene where he was like showing her exactly what the ancients did, because the CGI is so fun in that scene. I just love the colors reflecting on their faces, and like it's very of its time. It's a little bit dated, but to me it still looks good visually. Like I still enjoy it.
The CGI was fun in this episode. Like,
Yeah.
as you said, it's dated, but I think I'm just such a sucker for like Atlantis and then the big city. Holy shit! And that looked amazing, I think.
Yeah.
And then when the ship, like when Atlantis, not our Atlantis, but their Atlantis, took off, when they activated stuff, I was amazed. I was like, oh my god, this is amazing. I love this so much. But then there were other scenes where they are in hyperspace. I was like, oh god, you can see like the edges of the hair and stuff. It's kind of cute. I think it's I don't know. It's kind of charming.
I
I think it's dated CGI, but in a way that it's charming, because I think it's sometimes bad when it's like people or like creatures that are like really that just really really bad nowadays. But when it's like backgrounds and stuff, I don't know. I think I can forgive that.
Yeah, I
More
was gonna
easily.
say, yeah, even though I didn't really love a lot of the plot stuff, I will say, like, yeah, the characters and definitely, like, just visually, like, it was, like, so great. There was so many shots that I actually, like, took down and just, like, made a note of, and I was like, oh, wow, like, this is really pretty. And again, I love when they reuse the Atlanta set. Like, I actually do. And when there's, like, an actual, like, reason, like, a canon reason or in-universe reason for it, And so, again, to sort of have like another Atlantis and the team being like freaked out by it, and this being like an exact copy, like there was basically like, I mean, it was larger in certain aspects, but like it was basically still the same Atlantis. I love that.
Yeah.
It really is.
And it was so sweet when they stepped through the. It was so sweet when they stepped through the gate and were like, "Did we do a U-turn?" I was like, "That is so cute." And because we had that before, that they were like in SG1, that they were just sent back and stuff happened. And then they turn around and you see like behind the behind the gate, and there's just like there it looks completely different. But yeah, it's just fun to yeah. I mean, maybe they probably spend a lot of money on like the CGI. So
Yeah.
by having them basically in the same set that they always use, they probably save money there, which is kind of smart. But yeah, it worked out
No.
perfectly.
Yeah, and it is kind of fun to see the characters in their home setting, but off balance. Usually Atlantis is more like the safe space and stuff, but then you get to see them like in places you normally wouldn't see them in Atlantis, like guest quarters and in the prison cells, which was fun to see a little bit of a role reversal there. And I also really enjoyed how it gave us a sense of scale of our home Atlantis. So the way John was like, oh man, I wish we had a car, because the distance was so long to walk between places. It makes you really realize that Atlantis is a city and like they're walking like blocks to go from one place to the other.
I gotta say, I do want to give it some credit though. There are some things I did enjoy, especially the fact that the show is sort of teasing the star drive. You know, they've kind of like, you know, dropped it before, like mentioned it, I think, a few times. You know, they always say like we don't have enough power to really like fly the ship anywhere. And so actually like seeing the star drive like in use and like fly through hyperspace was really cool. And every time they showed it like just in space or like powering up, I was like, I can't wait till our city can do that. Like it's a really fun like, okay, like this is how where we're gonna get to eventually. You know, like visually you can see it.
Yeah, it's definitely a fun tease of the potential of where things could go in later seasons once they finally have power to power anything.
It's always the fucking ZPMs that they don't have and that they're struggle with, and it was so sweet. Like everyone has like their own little thing that like gets them going. Like for Elizabeth, it's the ancients, like oh my god, ancients, and she's off. And but for Rodney, it's like the ZPMs. As soon as he hears that they have like a bunch of ZPMs, he gets so fucking excited. He's like a little child on Christmas Eve or something.
Well, maybe we can just jump into characters. I feel like there's not much to really say about like eeny, meeny, money, mo. Honestly, I feel like everyone. Well, actually, let's do Teyla first because I was gonna say everyone gets their own thing to shine.
Yeah,
We should just have like a Teyla is being ignored corner. Because what does she do?
yeah, that pissed me off. She was again. Mainly, I feel like she was again kind of like a prop. Like she was asking the right questions at the right time, but so she was just setting up the other characters. That was so annoying. We didn't even know what what the replicators did to her.
Yeah.
When they mind probed her, we never know what they did to her and Elizabeth, for that matter. And so, hello. There are more people on the team than the men. Come on. They could have given us at least that.
Yeah, I feel like that would have been super interesting, and it maybe would have slowed down the pacing of the episode, but I would have loved to see, like, everybody's scenario acted out, and not just John's, because it would be interesting to see from everyone's point of view, because I feel like everyone was sort of the star of their own vision of the future, so yeah, it would be interesting for sure to see how everyone would react to the end of Atlantis.
I think they were completely different scenarios.
Yeah.
So maybe it would be kind of hard to have combined them because like the episode was setting up that we made the viewer believe that they were actually escaped and that Atlantis was destroyed.
True.
And all that. But if they had gone on, I don't know. It could have. I'm trying to make it make sense that they kind of in the end, like that the ending maybe would have been the same. But I guess it worked out because like it was the worst, like drawing out like their worst, like the worst case scenarios out of all the characters, right? Like for John, that was losing Atlantis and losing everyone else and not dying himself. And for Ronan, it was just like, what was it, a dark room? And he was fighting? Or maybe not even fighting? I don't know. For Rodney, it was something unspeakable.
Oh boy.
Probing and not just mind probing or something.
I don't know what's going on in Rodney's, but He says it's intimate, and I was like, girl,
Oh no. Yeah.
he's discovering that he's gay.
I was watching too much X-Files.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah, but if they had gone a different way with the episode, it would have been fun to see like all the, or maybe if we seen like snippets, a little bit like in Home, where we have like all the different realities, but they're all in the same, like at the beginning. I think you think it's all the same reality, and only slowly you realize that things are not matching up. So it would be fun if we had that here as well. I think to have like these different stories, and they at first they seem to converge, but in the end they don't.
Yeah, that would have been a great, like, just like a character opportunity. Because again, some of them are more developed than others, like the characters, and some of them aren't. Teyla. And so yeah, it really does suck to sort of just see her in the background, not even like getting like a fight scene or anything. Like I just feel like she's just there. I will say I enjoyed the little Teyla Beth crumbs. There's quite a few in this episode. That's like the only like little things we get. You know, her sort of like giving Elizabeth the washcloth to like help her with her headache when Elizabeth is being choked out, and she's like right there like trying to push Neem back, and then like saying like, "Are you okay?" or like just being next to her and like worried. The little smiles they give to each other, they're like teasing, and then the look they give Rodney and John when they're being idiots. Those are just like such iconic like Teyla Beth scenes, even though they're like 2.5 seconds long, and they're probably just like all like improvised by Tori and Rachel. It definitely wasn't in the script, but that was great. It's just it's just really unfortunate again to just have Teyla like just sidelined completely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She didn't even have I think Ronan at least had like a few like Ronan scenes where he got to fight a little bit, he got to say a few more lines. He got the thing in the beginning where he was playing with the gun. And Teyla was there, but she was just looking like she was kind of rolling her eyes. Like, oh my god, this guy. Which was cute, but it was all background, and she didn't even get that. She didn't get like a few scenes where like, oh yeah, that's something that Teyla would do. I wonder, because these replicators were initially created to fight the Wraith, how they would have reacted to Teyla, who has Wraith DNA.
True. That could have been a plot point.
Oh my
Absolutely.
god, yeah.
Absolutely.
That would have been really interesting. You know, oh my god, it could have been like like I'm ripping off SG1 right now. What is that episode? The SG1 season 4 episode where like they find out like those people are racist towards Teal'c.
Oh yeah. Where they drop him in the lake,
could have been something
right?
like that.
Oh
no, I was talking about the other ones, the underground.
Oh right.
Sorry, the other ones. How many multiple episodes are they racist to Teal'c? No. Is when they're underground, or it's like the two. They're like they fight up in like the sky, but they're like underground.
Oh yeah, they have like these. Yeah.
Like pods
like
or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then they realized that they were like racist.
Also, like I wonder if they would have, if they found out that she was part Wraith, if they would have gotten like, it's just weird about her, but just like, I don't know what they're. Because they're machines, and what the code would have compelled them to do once they found out that she was part Wraith.
Okay, this is like completely off topic. We're just like on rants here. But like, because I was under the impression that, you know, they were like, oh yeah, we've been destroyed. So they like fooled the ancients thinking they were destroyed. So I was thinking they also fooled the Wraith. And so they just been like in hiding, like waiting until they have like whatever their plan was to kill the Wraith, and then they were gonna go out of hide, right? That's what I was. So that makes sense, but what doesn't make sense is them like never actually doing anything with their plan and never going after the Wraith, like in the show. I think that's a little silly.
Yeah, although I do like the contrast with Atlantis, like the idea that Atlantis' philosophy is like act fast in order to preserve as much life as possible instead of waiting around to make plans but at the same time, we're, like, not thinking through things before we act on them, so then we make mistakes. But then versus these replicators who are just, like, stun-locked, doing nothing, because they can't make a decision.
Very ancient coded.
Yep.
Yup. Their plan is so big, like, because we don't really know what their plan is, right? They just say, oh, we'll strike when we are ready or something.
Yeah, very vague.
But assumingly it's to destroy, it's to destroy maybe all Wraith at once, perhaps? That's what I'm imagining. So...
Yeah, maybe like a weapon or something.
Yeah. So maybe it's, like, it's such a big plan. And so intricate that they're just, they work themselves into a, I don't know, a weird limbo. Or it just takes, like, forever. Like, they're trying to go at it so big that it's maybe not possible to even see through. But we don't know, because they never do.
Yeah.
Maybe they tell us their plan. I really just have no memory, so maybe we will discover what their plan was. I don't know.
Yeah, time will tell.
But I could be totally wrong, but I feel like when the assurance appear in the future, it's not about the Wraith anymore. Maybe. But
Yeah.
I don't think.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't remember now.
I feel like they low-key like changed their objective to just like get Atlantis, I think.
Yeah.
I feel like.
Yeah.
Atlantis is really good at, like, making new enemies.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. They're a little too good at that. Like, please stop being so good, actually.
I think John is personally really good at making people despise him. He's so sarcastic this whole episode. And, like, I get it. I understand. And I love it. But it's also so much. Too much, perhaps. Like, I think he lands on, like, the Atlantis 2.0 and, like, hates them on sight, like, out of spite.
Yeah.
Like, his sarcastic comments.
Their Atlantis is bigger.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
His one-liners are fucking crazy this episode. Like, I was just cracking up. He's furious. He, like, does not want anything to do with these people. And even when he first thinks they're ancients, he's like, I got a bone to pick with them. What the fuck is your problem? I mean, I get your problem. I support your mission. And then, he's just upset the rest of the way. And then he's like, replicators. He's like, what the are they doing here? And then he's just like, oh, no. What does he say to you? I wrote down a line. What does he say? He says, I guess when he's talking to the team about, like, what the ancients did to them.
Right.
And he says something along the lines of, like, what he was looking for, like, therapy. Or he mentions therapy at one point.
That was the one that took me out completely. I laughed a lot. Not John being the one to bring up therapy.
Exactly. He's throwing stones in a glass house. He's calling the kettle black.
Yeah.
And he's the pot. Like, it's just too much. It was too much.
And I love his little, unancienty. They don't seem very ancienty.
Rodney's like, really? We're making up words now? Like, this is what we're doing? And I love how they're suspicious of them being ancients. One, because Teyla is a great judge of character. That's one thing that she was doing in this episode very well. But two, because they weren't about ascension. And they're like, oh, they can't be real ancients if they're not into ascension.
And I was just dying because it just brought me back to Epiphany.
Yeah.
I was going to mention John's little nightmare, because that's the only one we really see.
Right.
Of them escaping and then going back to Atlantis and being, like, bombarded by, like, 30-something hive ships. First of all, I was like, that a very valid nightmare. Or that would keep me up at night. But I also think that his little martyr complex, his little savior complex, whatever you want to call it, kind of, like, popped up.
Oh, yeah.
For, like, a split second when, like, he refuses, like, it's, like, not even to question him that, like, he would be the one to, like, sacrifice his life. And I low-key feel like he's such a silly guy, because I feel like you could have just put in the numbers and then, like, run to the gate and, like, jump through. But he, of course, had to go down with the ship like a fucking, like, old-timey little captain.
Yeah.
And just his face when, he's, like, dying. Like, he doesn't even flinch. He just closes his eyes and he's like, I'm ready. And I was like, oh my god. You're so crazy.
He's crazy. He is. He loves it. Like, it's simultaneously a nightmare and a fantasy, personally. I think, like, if he had to go out, like, that would be the way that he wanted to die. Like, not necessarily Atlantis exploding and dying with him, but, like, saving everybody. Oh, yeah, 100%. And I just also really love how, everyone is so themselves in his little nightmare. Like, I thought it was really nice how Elizabeth was so calm under fire and was like, okay, evacuation, and, like, was not hesitant at all and was, like, very strong. So I'm happy to see that John thinks of her as she is, in that way. And even Rodney, it was so good as well. The whole, like, oh, we should flip a coin to see who stays behind thing was very, very him as well. I like that. There's almost like a guilt thing. There's something there. There's gotta be a reason. Again, we laugh.
Catholic guilt icon.
When he mentions other people need to go to therapy.
One scene that cracked me up was when they bring in the food and Rodney goes straight for it and Rowan's like, nah, back of the line. But they do it because Ronan and John have, like, this plan. I think Teyla is also involved there, but you don't really see it, to, like, take down the guards. Because, like, they have, like, yeah, as you said, like, this unspoken, like, understanding on how to get out of these kind of situations.
I thought that was so funny because I didn't remember exactly what happened at that scene, so I was kind of watching it with fresh eyes, and I was thinking, like, oh, haha, Ronan's, like, making Rodney wait to eat, and then I was like, wait, he's, like, smelling everything he's eating, so then in my head I'm like, oh, is he, like, checking the food first, like, before he lets them eat it, like, you know, in the knighthood or something, and then he spits it in that guy's face, so then I was like, ah, yes,
It's
distraction.
He's like, fuck your food.
I love the layers in there. Like, at first it's funny because it's like, oh, he doesn't want Rodney to eat, and then you realize, oh, maybe he's doing this because, yeah, actually he wants to check if the food is, like, poisoned or anything, or if it's edible. And then it goes like, oh no, he was doing it because he had, like, this whole plan to escape with John. It's kind of crazy, but I love it.
The journey.
Oh my gosh. Okay, wait, since we're on the topic of, like, Ronan and stuff, I have to mention... this is such a great episode for, like, the bodyguard, Ronan and Rodney, like, AU, that, like, I don't know if it exists, but if it does, I need to read more. I just love, like, Prince Rodney, and, like, Ronan the Knight type of vibes, just all over this episode, because I love those little scenes at the end where, like, Rodney goes inside, like, the room, and then he's like, Ronan... to, like, the frozen replicator in the chair, and then, like, Ronan just comes forward and just pushes him off, and he's like, okay, now I can go sit down. Like, such a little Prince move. He's like, could you take care of that for me? That's so great. And then, of course, the iconic scene where Rodney's, like, teasing Oberoth, who's frozen, and then Oberoth, like, reaches out and, like, starts choking him, and Ronan screams, McKay, which is, like, chef's kiss, but he screams, like, McKay, and then Oberoth, like, smacks Ronan to the ground, but I was just like...
He jumps at Oberoth, and then he smacks him. Like, he literally, he just...
Yeah. Launches himself at Oberoth, and he's like, McKay!
Absolutely. Oh, man, Ronan was such a tank this episode. So good. I love when he is very protective of Rodney and the rest of the crew. Just seeing him in action, and, like, we always say this about Jason, but, like, the physicality that he brings to Ronan is just so fun. Like, after he gets launched by Oberoth, he's, like, shooting people on the ground, and then he does, like, a completely unnecessary but so cool spin kick up off the ground.
He's so freaking cool. I honestly think, there's that trope that was sort of popularized with like Spock and stuff, which is sort of like the like silent or like the strict or the stoic alien type of trope, you know. But I think obviously I love like Spock. Like Spock's like obviously the king of that like trope. He literally is the OG. But I kind of love how like Ronan like sort of turns that trope on its head. Like yes, he is stoic and stuff, but he's not like in the background. He doesn't fade into the background like some of these other characters do. He's there like in the action. And he's not like stoic because of like that's just how his race was. It's just like that's been forced upon him that I think is really interesting. So Ronan Hive, get fucking good this episode.
Yep. So many things. Like,
Yeah,
he has the best line when they're first talking to the replicators. He's like, he kind of not low-key, high-key judges them for abandoning the ancients, being like, where we come from, we take care of our family. And, like, Ronan being the character to, like, refer to everyone as family and, like, be so passionate about that. Like, you know why he stayed with him. You know why these are his people. It's just so good.
I love him so much. I love him for calling out the ancients. I love him for, just amazing.
With every episode, I feel like our love and just like appreciation for Ronan and for Jason just like grows. I feel like.
Yep.
We even got Ronan Elizabeth crumbs in that one scene where they're having the little meeting and they're talking about how the replicators have this like wraith destruction plan, and Ronan is like, they do not. And Elizabeth agrees with him right away, and she's like, yeah, they definitely don't. I love how they were like thinking the same thoughts in that scene. That was really special.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, we sort of touched upon it already, but I love the intro scene. I just feel like I love a good, just cute little moment before the team goes off on the mission. And so him just like twirling around his gun and John being like, we're supposed to be friendly. And he's like, I am friendly. As he puts it away, he's like, I'm cool. And John's like, is it on stun though? And he's like, he turns it on stun. And then later, I love it too in the episode when they're running. John's like, Ronan, take off the stun, or he's like, put it on kill, or whatever he says, and Ronan like turns it actually on to kill mode. It's just like a fun little callback.
Yeah, absolutely. Full circle in the best way possible.
I feel like this episode, it's not just like the characters like alone, but also like the dynamics that really come through in this episode.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Like we said with the Ronan and Rodney, but also we have a few Rodney and Elizabeth crumbs where I'm like, they're so cute, and he's always so worried for her. It's so sweet. This is one scene when they're like, I think they're in hyperspace right now, and Niam is about to like offers her to show like the history of the replicators, and Rodney's like, Elizabeth, be careful, or something like that. It's like, oh, he doesn't want her to get hurt, and she's like, no, it's fine. And it was. And it's just a really, really sweet. And he reaches out a little bit, I think, or takes like a step forward. I'm like, oh my god, oh, my heart.
Yeah, they're so cute, and they do it for each other too. Like even in John's nightmare fantasy, Elizabeth like has her hand on Rodney's back while they're escaping. So like she's like always in contact with him while they're like running down the stairs. And especially at the end of the episode when Elizabeth gets attacked by Niam. And afterwards,
Oh yeah.
oh my god, Rodney telling Elizabeth he's sorry was so, and it was like so genuine and so sad. And I was like, the ultimate rare Rodney apology.
That hurt me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
And I'm really excited to see, because I obviously first watch, or it's been a while. But I'm really excited to see how this episode like leads into the next episode, and I hope they sort of emphasize like Rodney's guilt over this thing, because obviously it wasn't his fault. But just for like the juicy, dramatic tension, I do hope that they show him being a little more blaming himself a bit, because that would be really fun, like continuity.
Yeah, and I know for a fact that he really struggles with it in season 4, so I want to see it now too.
Yeah, this episode sets up a lot for like Elizabeth later, like her story arc, basically her whole story arc, and then they leave it like kind of open, or like they end it kind of weirdly. I'm really looking forward to the next episode. Because like it's like one of 2 Elizabeth episodes. But also, yeah, I mean the replicate, like the nanites, they just like, we don't know that she's infected yet, but spoilers. Like we know that Niam infected her with like the nanites, and that they stay with her and throughout the episode, or like throughout the rest of the season, and then in the end and beginning of season 4. So
Interesting things to come.
yeah.
Oh, yes. Okay, Elizabeth finally gets a conversation scene with Obroth pretty early on in the episode, which I really appreciate. And I definitely probably like my favorite Elizabeth scene of the episode, because I think it's just so great to see her, first of all, to take like the initiative and be like, no, I'm gonna go speak to like Obroth alone, leader to leader. And you can just tell like it just goes like horribly like right off the bat. I forgot what he says in the beginning, but he says something so fucking arrogant. She's like, and I was screaming. I was like, Elizabeth has infinitely like more patience than me, because I would have like fought him like after he opened his mouth, like the first sentence, right?
Yeah.
And she just like kept it classy, very demure, very mindful. And then she adds at the end though, she goes for the "may I suggest it runs in the family," the boom mic drop.
Yeah, that was so
But again,
good.
Very, very classy.
That was insane of her, like honestly, but I'm very grateful. I like it when Elizabeth goes up to like the guys, and like, because it's mostly guys, that she has to like fight with. Like she's trying to negotiate, but I think she's doing a good job, because they both want information of each other, but she's obviously like very cautious to give away like her origin and like the position, like where Atlantis is and stuff. But he's so rude, and he doesn't give her anything, and she's still trying, and then in the end she's just like, oh, fuck you. But like diplomatically.
Exactly. I love that scene so much. And I also really enjoy the scene at the end. We get a classic Elizabeth and John on the balcony scene, which I always love. I feel like it's just a great way to like end the episode and reflect.
I like the last scene, because it's like the balcony scene, because it's almost hopeful, like not completely, but I think they say something. I think they say something like, "Oh, maybe we got them this time, and we're okay now." And then John says, "Yeah, maybe," but it's like kind of a little bit hopeful, and then it fades to Niam. Not it fades, but it cuts to Niam, and just like it zooms in, and it's like, oh shit, okay. Yeah, and it kind of leaves it as an open end, which I thought it was good. I think thinking of the next episode maybe, but also just, yeah, it shows that like Niam is frozen in space, so you think, oh, what could happen? And I think they were kind of playing on him having like tears in his eyes, or maybe something like that. But yeah, I thought it was a nice contrast, where it's like, oh, my hero beat them this time, and then like you get like this kind of ominous feeling afterwards.
Yeah, and it's definitely a nice segue into what happens next episode as well. You kind of get this like nice balcony scene, and then boom, we're gonna get some interesting things happening with Elizabeth's character in particular. So
really quick. Of course, we have to talk about kind of the really underrated mcshep moments in this episode.
Yeah.
I feel like I don't know, there's quite a bit of humor, and I feel like, yeah, they're all just in this episode for some reason. I love the scenes of them like walking in the hallway, just like talking shit behind like Liam and Elizabeth. There's that great gag. Oh, I love it so much when like Rodney's like doing something on the little like what is it, the Game Boy? I call it the Game Boy.
Yeah.
And John like peeks over behind his shoulder, and then she moves to the other side, and then Rodney's talking to the side, and then he's like, oh shit, and he goes up to the other side. So yeah, just great. I love.
And the whole thing with like the numbers and like, so how long will they be frozen? Like 5 minutes, 10 minutes? I don't know. 7.5, 7.5 minutes. There you go. And it carries like throughout the rest of the episode. It's so fucking funny.
Yeah, I love that, especially because it's like a running gag in the series. I think there are multiple times throughout Stargate Atlantis where like John will ask Rodney for some number and Rodney can't give it to him, so it's like he just makes one up, an arbitrary number, and then John will hold him to that number for the rest of the episode. So just excellent running gag that they have. And I always love John verbally needling Rodney and being like, are you ready yet? Is it done? Because, of course, the pressure always leads to a wonderful eureka moment from Rodney. I also enjoyed them physically needling each other in the episode when they were poking each other. They're just so... They bring out the kid in each other, which I enjoy.
Also, finally, Rodney gets to slap him. I feel like John's had a good, 2 slaps in him already, and I'm like, all right, Rodney needs to fight back, and so I'm happy that Rodney got to just, smack him in the head. Or just, push him a little, and John, retaliates really quick, but it just shows, that's what I really appreciate about them, is that most of the time, they can dish it out, and they can also take it. That's what makes it fun. It's not like one of them has, a different power dynamic, and they're, bullying the other one. No, it's both of them can slap each other, and they're whatever.
Yeah. I also really loved John gassing Rodney up in the initial meeting with the replicators, where Rodney's like, I'm great at complexity. And John's like, and scope. That's really excellent. What do you mean by that, John?
You're look, this is our best guy. For me, it just felt very, arranged marriage for some reason. That's what it was doing. Or marriage, political marriage between 2 tribes. I was look at what he can do. Isn't he great? And they're yeah.
This is his dowry. His brain.
Exactly.
Also, speaking of John, I can't believe I forgot to mention this, but I think my favorite one-liner of his in this episode was when they were trying to leave the first time, and they were stopped by all the replicators, and he has his gun up, and they're like, oh, lower your weapon. And he's like, how low do you want it? He just really wanted to shoot someone in the dick for being an asshole, which I don't disagree with.
Something that was cracking me up was when the replicators go on about being unable to rewrite their own command code because the ancients set in I don't know, a fail-safe or something, so they couldn't do it. And I'm just imagining that what the Asians did is they just make these captcha things where you have to solve stuff for you have the images with the stoplights or with the crosswalks or the bikes, and the replicators failing for millennia to figure out which images are the fucking crosswalks and which are the steps and which is the bike. And It kind of made me laugh.
I love that. Because those are hard even for humans to do. And I imagine actual robots would have a difficult time as well.
Yeah.
Oh, I almost forgot. Zelenka.
Yes?
We didn't talk about Zelenka. His, 2-second cameo in the
Cool.
end of the episode. He didn't do much more than make a face, but it was very funny when Rodney was like, oh, there's nothing more annoying than people who can't admit they're wrong. And Zelenka's face was just the dumbfounded look on his face was peak. Because Zelenka has to deal with that every day of his life.
Mm-hmm. Imagine what a chill day he had while Rodney was off base.
Absolutely.
He was just like, I imagine he was just catching up on weeks of work that he always wanted to do but never got to it because Rodney demanded his attention or something.
Absolutely. All the characters were so character in this episode. It really was good.
Yeah, we really had some 2 really strong episodes, I think, back to back, more or less, with the Teyla and now this. With a lot of character work, okay, we can talk about the story and everything, but I think overall, character-wise, the last one, the Teyla and this one were really strong. I like when we have the replicator council. I like that there were a lot of women on the council. They weren't in leading positions, but I think at least half of them were women, and that was really great to see. Even if they didn't, 2 of them spoke at least later on, which is something.
Yeah.
But I really appreciated that.
Basically, 2 men spoke and 2 women spoke. So you know what? I'll take the equality. Thank you.
Yep.
Yep. And I just wanted to make a note. Yeah, so they actually exploded that entire city.
Yep.
They actually killed how many people were on that?
Well, okay. So in the beginning, they said that there were living millions in the whole complex, but that included Atlantis, Atlantis 2.0, and the whole complex surrounding Atlantis. We don't really know how many people were on the ship. They blew perfectly good Atlantis.
Dare we say better?
I mean,
3 ZPNs, I'm gonna say.
It's true.
That was it. So I guess we could go to Ash for the Bechdel test.
Good news, everyone. This episode actually passes. It's really razor thin, but a few times at least. It's
nice.
Just Teyla and Elizabeth, obviously.
I'll take it.
That happens if you have 2 women as in the main cast and you have them there. Then it's so easy. It is so fucking easy. Anyways, this episode passes.
Woo!
Okay, and it goes to me, actually. Actually, there's not much on Progeny, which, I don't know what that says about the episode. But...
Oh.
So it was directed by Andy Minka. And the story was by Robert C. Cooper and Carl Binder. But the teleplay was by Carl Binder, so just Carl. But I guess Robert C. Cooper had come up with at least some of the larger story aspects. First up is something I wanted to mention in the episode, but I actually decided to wait till the behind the scenes part because I just feel like it was very underwhelming the way they did it in the episode. But the Assurans are confirmed to be the Hot Zone virus creators.
What?
And I just feel like that leaves us with so many questions. See, it's so difficult. When you're watching the episode and Rodney says it, you're like, what the fuck is he talking about? And it wasn't until after I looked at the notes, I was like, oh, he's talking about Hot Zone.
Oh my god. Yeah, he does say that.
So, according to Brad Wright, the Assurans were originally conceived as a series of primary villains back when the show was on the drawing board and set on Earth. that makes sense as to why they kept them replicators, but I don't like it still.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it's weird because the show evolved so much and they obviously went away from that idea. So why didn't they change that detail?
I just wanted to highlight really quick too, because I love when shows do this, but this episode uses the famous Buffy trope, which is Buffy speak. And for example, the words that John uses, so ancient tea and unancient tea. Which, for those of you that don't know what Buffy speak is, it's where a character will add a Y or an H to words that don't actually have them in an attempt to have dialogue that sounds natural.
Ah.
So, shooty gunny thing, or breakage, or slayage, or all these different words. And so I was so happy that, I think the show uses Buffy speak sometimes, but I'm just hearing it more often.
I love that.
Now I'm visualizing John as Buffy.
Exactly, I need it. So David Ogenstairs, I'm totally mispronouncing his name, Obroth, is actually best known as Major Charles Emerson Winchester III on MASH.
I knew him from somewhere. Oh my god! I was like, that face is mighty familiar to me. And I couldn't place it. Oh my god, because he has an accent on MASH that he doesn't have on this episode. That's crazy.
Oh.
They got
Okay, interesting.
Charles Winchester to be on Stargate Atlantis. Wow. I'm shocked.
At least Tor's like fangirling. Like Darcy was so like confused, but Tor's fangirling for all of us. And so in Hungarian, this episode is called Descendants, and in French, it's called True Copies.
Ooh.
Okay.
That's interesting. I feel like that would be a cooler name for the episode where they meet, like, themselves as replicators. But still cool.
Ooh, yeah.
And now we can head over to Tor for the Fic Rec Corner.
All right. So, I feel like the trope of using the replicators is quite common in not only Stargate Atlantis fic, but also SG-1 fic as well. And it was tough for me because we're going to be seeing a lot of replicators later on in the series, and we're going to get more lore and certain things related to replicators are going to come out later on. So it was hard to find one that was very bare bones, didn't need all like background context to really get into. But I think this one was a safe bet, and it's called Cardiogenesis, the Heart of the Matter. The summary: it was the stupidest way to die in any galaxy. This is by Kisa Hawklin. They have a ton of SGA fic that's really good. It is about Rodney, of course. He has an accident off-world where he is shot in the heart with an arrow. And so using the ancient technology, they put him in one of those like cryopods because they don't know how to save him. But they kind of need his brain. So they create a replicator copy of Rodney to have around on Atlantis while they figure out how to save the real Rodney. And it's very interesting. I feel like philosophically it's also quite interesting. I really enjoy it. There is a major character death tag on the fic, but I will let you guys know that it ends happily. No spoilers, but it ends happily. So please do give it a read, even though that tag is very scary for some of us. But yes, I really enjoyed it, and I think if you are into the replicator thing and the whole philosophy behind it, you'll enjoy that fic. Pivoting a little bit in terms of subject matter to the episode, I really loved how Elizabeth was so involved in the off-world happenings in this episode, so I chose a fic that was also like that. It is called Blind Justice by Sholio. Basically, Rodney touches something he shouldn't have, and it kills him. Wow, there's a theme going on this Vic Recorder this week. But that's not the end. Not when you have friends willing to drag you back. So, Elizabeth is part of the rescue for Rodney in this Gen fic, and it is such a delight. I love her in this fic. I love their friendship in this fic. So if you are a big fan of any sort of Rodney and Elizabeth relationship, friendship that we see in this episode and on the show, you should definitely read Blind Justice. Also ends happily. No one actually dies in the fic. I promise.
Oh, I love both of these so much. I'm gonna check them out, and you should too, viewer. They'll be linked down below.
So our last episode was Satita, and our poll question was, how do you think Rodney handles his fruit boxers? Different fruit for every weekday? His mood decides the fruit? Or he chooses the fruit at random? Now, there was a lot of debate, especially on Tumblr, about the answer to this question. And it was a pretty even spread. But the ultimate winner was his mood decides the fruit. Now, we had a couple of comments explaining the reasoning for their vote. So let's get into it. Our first comment here was random for sure. Mood is not scientific. He might do days of the week just to make sure everything stays clean because of their line of work. But usually it's random. He just grabs what's there. Then we have not describing why they voted a certain way, but somebody said Rodney has the worst taste in clothes, but he is very serious about his underwear choices.
Drag him, drag him.
Another vote for random. He's probably getting like 4 or 5 hours of sleep a night if he's not busy. So probably grabbing whatever's closest.
I agree. Seconded.
Someone suggested that Monday is watermelon day. Not sure why, but I'll take it. And somebody mentioned, is there someone who would switch out all of these fruity undies for ones with only lemons on them as an April Fool's joke?
Yes.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ronan? John?
It was Alenka.
I was also thinking Ronan, honestly.
Yeah.
I like the idea that he's kinda, that he would, get Zelenka to help him. That would be really funny.
Yes, absolutely. Recruiting
Just
him.
teaming up together.
Yes, actually, I love that.
Yes, exactly.
Canon.
Yeah, so thanks guys so much for participating in the poll. Thank you, Ash, for the poll itself. It was excellent.
And now we have come to the rating.
Ooh.
Gasp.
Okay. I think I had a rating before we started recording, and then it changed because it always does. Come on, when we have a discussion, naturally. So I'm gonna give it a 7.5 out of 10. And the reason for that is that I think the characters and the character dynamics are so strong in the episode that it just lifts it into, like, good episode territory enough that I'm like, okay, this is a good episode. But realizing through our discussion how much of this episode was just reused and recycled plot from an SG-1 episode kind of made me feel like, oh, I don't really like that much. So, yeah, because of that, 7.5.
What was your rating before, if I may ask?
It was a solid 8.
It is really funny.
Okay.
Because for me it was the exact same. So I'm also giving it a 7.5. Of pretty much the same reasons. For me, it's a solid episode. I think it has a high enjoyability. To me, I think it's pretty plot driven, but also has a lot of character moments and character dynamics that I enjoy. But yeah, I think honestly the thing with the reused was the one that made me realize that, okay, yeah, like there are other things to criticize, and I see that, but they don't bother me that much. But that one was the one where it's like, yeah, that's gonna cut half a point off my rating.
Nice. Yeah, actually, I left the rating blank. Forgot. But, yeah, I think I'm gonna have to go...
Speak your truth.
I think I'm gonna go 7, yeah. Yeah, I think, listen, I do think the characters and the character dynamics, like, bring it up so much, and it's just such a fun... I feel like if you're just in the mood to watch, like, a classic Stargate episode, like, no need for continuity, just throw this episode on, blast. Just have a good time. I think as, you know, we're judging it sort of, like, in a series, and, like, just looking at, like, the overall impact and sort of, like, the storylines and, like, all that stuff, I think that's when you sort of look at this episode and go, not that creative. The creativity was out the door. It was nowhere to be found for this episode. But yeah, of the characters, I just respect it so much for just, like, giving us, like, an Elizabeth off-world episode.
Yeah.
With the team, which is so rare, which is so annoying that it's so rare, but I'm gonna, like, just give it points for that, seriously. A fun time. A time was had when I wasn't, like, trying to break my mind over, like, these questions and, like, figure shit out and, like, make these dots connect, and I was, like, just in the moment, like, and that's all I ask for sometimes at the end of the day. So I think a 7 is good.
Yeah, and a 7 is still good, I think. It's not terrible. Yeah.
Oh, no. I was like, should I go evil? But I was like, there's no need. I just feel like I didn't hate it, like, that much to give it, like, a 6.5. I feel like it's better than that. So, yeah, we're being positive this season.
Look at us.
Yeah. Look at us. Who would have thought? Not me. It's that all that goodwill from Satita, because we're still so happy. Yeah.
Fair.
And I mean, we're putting a lot of hope into season 3.
Yes.
During season 2. And I'm glad that so far it's kind of...
It's hitting. It's
like,
delivering.
Yeah, like Satita was a really, really strong one, and I think this one was also, like, a solid one. Solid.
Yeah, and more solid to come, for sure.
Exactly. The best is yet to come, actually. Well, sure to check out all of our links down below. You can check out the fics that were recommended. You can also check out our Jumping Puddles social media accounts. You can see when we post new episodes. And for polls, which, sorry, we kind of forgot to post the polls on Instagram and Twitter. But no. We're going to be so on top of it. My bad. But again, you can vote on Tumblr, Instagram, or Twitter. And also linked down below are our personal socials that you can check out to see what we're up to during the week and what fandoms we're in. Thanks for hanging out with us today.
Bye now.
Bye.
All right, you clowns, listen up. I don't often get a chance to say this, so savor it. Good work, boys and girls. Let's go home.